Well, good morning. Happy Thursday, everybody. It is definitely a Thursday. May Jove bless you all and find you greatly blessed. Um, Today, I'd like to say, beyond the blessings, I'm actually looking forward to today's little podcast thing for a number of reasons. I'm going to be addressing Aaron Leach, who is my online nemesis, one of the many people that I have beef with, I guess you might call it beef. It's not really personal. It's just that he's just a very, very wrong person. Recently, yesterday, in fact, he was posting about. Let's see. So I put these in text because I had them in Facebook earlier, and people's messages started popping up, and it was oddly disconcerting. Anyway, so this is what Aaron writes about sin. And I want to talk about sin today because it is Thursday, and one of the things that Jupiter gods are really well known for is being related to Jehovah, amongst other things. And Jehovah is sort of a big deal when it comes to sin. Most of our ideas of sin are defined by the Bible and the Old Testament. And as magicians, we are generally still kind of stuck at dealing with all the sin garbage that we got from our youth. So Aaron's like trying to appease people and tell them, hey, it's okay. So he says, sin is only that which moves you further from God. If it doesn't do that, it's not a true sin. And for once, I'm going to agree with Aaron. Well, not for once. Once in a while, I agree with Aaron. But here we have sacredtext.com. This is the divine Pander. Here we have Trismegistus, who has been sucked up into heaven, is talking to the divine Pander, who is the Logos. Pander is also one of the epithets of Hermes, by the way. He is the shepherd of men. I believe, pretty sure. Anyway, so Pander is talking to Hermes, and he's like, hey, I made people to, he doesn't say to love one another and to hate one another, but he says that people incarnated for the sake of love, and that they're of two natures for the sake of love. And it's really great, and blah, 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 blah. So Hermes is like, okay, so why do they that are ignorant sin so much, that they should therefore be deprived of immortality? And Pymander's like, you don't seem to understand what you've heard. And Hermes is like, well, tell me then. Okay, so there's a sad and dismal darkness before its body, of which darkness is the moist nature, etc., etc. Oh, wait a minute. No, this is still the beginning. No, that is the end. Okay. So anyway, it was holy crap. Where was it? Here it is. Okay. So here Pymander is talking to Hermes, and he's like, I am the mind itself, and I will not suffer the operations or works which happen or belong to the body. He doesn't want physical things to happen to you, basically, right? So we know that that's not what he means, because obviously if we're all incarnated to experience things through the flesh, that must not be what he means, and that's what he says earlier. So anyway, I'm going to fast forward because some of this stuff can be confusing, and I understand it to the best of my ability, but trying to put it into words off the top of my head when I'm actually trying to talk about this part right here is difficult. So basically what Pymander says is, to the foolish, evil, and wicked people, I am far off, right? So Aaron says, sin is anything that drives you away from God. And Pymander says to anybody who's sinful, I am far off. And he gives place to the revenging demon, and he is not there close to them the way he was, and let's see here. So when you're a good person and you're pious, the mind, the nous, the logos is how you actually interact with the nous. The nous comes unto men that are holy and good, pure and merciful, that they might live piously and religiously, and its presence is a help unto them. So those of you who are actively in the presence of God, like myself, um, we tend to have things go our way, and you wonder why sometimes, and it's because we are good, upright, pious, and religious. And if you sense any sarcasm in that, it's entirely 100% because it's there. So yeah, but I guess hermetically speaking, what I'm trying to say here is that Aaron Leach is technically accurate. He goes on to say, though, in a very milquetoasty kind of way, that this was inspired by how many times people have said that they can't work with angels because they're not pure enough and they commit sins, right? And he's like, well, angels don't care, man, and that's entirely not true. And he goes on to say that, in nature, insects mate, and fucking is fine. So therefore all sin is okay, except unless it like harms someone, whatever the fuck that's supposed to mean. It's not, he doesn't really define what sin is. He just says what it isn't. And that's okay. And he's not wrong about what it isn't. It's just, it's weak toast. And then he talks about bugs, and I've been struggling a lot with good and evil lately, and sinful natures and stuff like that in general because of my own personal life. I've got many issues, and with the quitting of the drinking and other kinds of changes that have been going on in my life, I've had to do a lot of soul searching and figuring out who I am, and without the booze and what it is I really want to do with my life in general. So. And why I do things, what my motivation is, why am I into things, and how much of that is good, and how much of what I actually do is in keeping with what I really want to do, and what is it that I do that draws me closer to my source, my creative potential, the connection I have with deity, and what is it that drives me further away from it and gets me more distracted by other things. How accurate is this thing that it is sinful to get away from God, So I would like to start with defining what sin is, and I think Aaron does have a good starting place. It's that which drives you away from God. But biblically, which is where, whether you like it or not, we get all of our understanding of what sin is. Sin was literally what kept you away from God. It was the unholiness and uncleanliness of the person because of what they do and what they say in the flesh, that corrupts them to the point where God was so pure and so holy that if his holiness was around anything corrupt, it would be consumed immediately. So God, it's not that God didn't want to hang around with sinners, it's that he couldn't without killing them. One of the reasons that Elijah had to cover his face when God walked by is because you can't look at God. There's a Hellenistic myth of a woman who was one of Zeus's lovers, and she asked to see him, and she was pregnant, and Zeus was like, that's going to kill you. And she said, yeah, but you promised I could have anything I want. One wish, I wish I could see you in your true form. And Zeus is like, okay, fucking fine, whatever. So he shows her, she turns to stone, but her child lives and is born as, I believe it was Hermaphrodite, the dual-sexed god that was basically a hermaphrodite. Anyway, she protected her womb by wrapping ivy around her waist. So the idea that you can cover up the part of yourself that you want to save, when God passes by, it wanders over into Greece too, as well as in the Bible. But anyway, so God's purity is what destroys sin, and why sin is bad. It's not because he hates you and wants to punish you. It's that you just can't hang out with him in his presence, and he really wants that. So that's the biblical version. The Hermetic version is that everybody's perfect already. So, and that goes back to what Aaron said about where was it? Here. So long as you stay on the road, the gods don't really care if you enjoy the tourist traps along the way. Stop beating yourself up for being human and enjoy the ride instead. Now, I couldn't agree with that more, honestly, and I'm not going to give him too much shit about that. But the fact is that the gods really do care if you enjoy the tourist traps along the way. If they've got something that they've told you to do and you stop and you're delaying things, that's sort of like a form of hubris, and that's something they don't like. And if the gods have told you to do something, you should really do it, and not stop along the way. And you'll understand that better once you get to know the gods. You can tell because all of a sudden things don't work when you stop doing them. So you'll see what I mean. I'm having some troubles with connectivity because I interrupted something earlier. So let's see, where were we? Yeah, I just, and this is a rambling thing because I didn't really spend a lot of time preparing for it, but I have spent a lot of time thinking about this lately. Harper gave a talk at Thelamicon on the headless back in, I think it was October. And while she was giving the presentation and doing the research, being around all that, I got to see a lot of the information that went into the original presentation that didn't necessarily make it into the final presentation. And hopefully she's going to be publishing that through Academia Hermetica or somewhere like it soon, because it is very edifying and it's very useful to understand. So if you look at the Stela of Jehu, first of all, I'm just gonna say this. This is an unpopular opinion, and I want you to listen to the whole thing. The headless one, who created heaven and earth, and night and day, and light and darkness. These are all descriptors of Jehovah in the Old Testament, right? He did all those things in Genesis. You see all of this unfold. So it sounds a lot like Jehovah. And you get to Yabus and Yapos, and you look down here in the footnotes, and you see that, according to Betts, at least at the time, he believed very strongly that, where was it? Anyway, he says that the Yabus and Yapos are Semitic words for Jehovah, right? No, it's not in here either. Oh, poop. I hate when I'm trying to say things. Anyway, Yabus and Yapus are supposed to be the Semitic names for Jehovah. But then it goes on and it says, literally, I am Moses, your prophet, to whom you transmitted your mystery, celebrated by Israel. It says, you transmitted your mystery, celebrated by Israel. Who did that? It was Jehovah. Sorry, spoiler alert. The headless one is, according to this stuff, Jehovah. So if you look at this and the definition of sin that Aaron was talking about, this as a statement of Jehovah is, I think, something that would be very interesting to use as a lens to interpret this, especially when it comes to the subject of good and evil and love and hate. So it says, where is it? He is the Lord of the gods. He is the Lord of the inhabited world. He's the one whom the winds fear. He's the one who made all things by command of his voice. Right? So it says, where is it? You have made men to love one another and to hate one another. What the hell? Why can't I find this? Oh, it must be up here. There it is. Duh. All right. So anyway, it says, you've made men to love each other and to hate each other. So love and hate is part of God's plan. If Jehovah is the one that's defining what sin is and everything, love and hate are things that he created us to do. So love and hate are not sin. Hatred is not a sin. Love is not a sin. But it goes on to say that I am the truth who hates the fact that unjust deeds are done in the world, right? So he hates evil. He hates unjust deeds. Unjust deeds is translated as evil in other places, but unjust deeds are evil. He doesn't like that. So Jehovah hates unjust deeds, and those are the things that keep him from being in your presence, right? Are you following my whole logical? This is actually very logical, even though it's theological. So he's very into righteousness and purity. So now we go back to Aaron Leach. My poor Aaron Leach. He talks about purity here. And he says, if you're worried about working with the angels because you're sinful, I challenge you to find one prophet or forefather in the Bible who is pure. Being pure is clearly not a requirement, right? Okay, so if you read the penitential Psalms, it says very clearly in there that we're all evil. Okay, let me, I'll go ahead and pull this up in the background while I'm talking. But yeah, it says we're all evil, basically. We're just evil people. And it's not our righteousness or our purity that via the penitential Psalms that we say when we're doing Solomonic magic, it's not our purity that we're calling on. We're not asking for forgiveness and then we are made pure. We're asking for forgiveness and then we're pointing out that he made us this way and people are making fun of him, and for his name's sake, he's got to go out and do something, you know? It's like, for your name's sake, man. But yeah, like Psalm 6. Oh, I should go to the King James Version. So if God's mad at you, he says, don't rebuke me. Have mercy upon me, for I am weak. Heal me, for my bones are vexed. You know, here's all these things that are wrong with me. And then, depart from me, all ye workers of iniquity, for the Lord hath heard the voice of my weeping. So it's the workers of iniquity. It's the evil deeds, the doers, the things that get done, you know. What's another one? 51. Yeah, this is the one about the hyssop. Purge me with hyssop and I shall be clean. Wash me and I shall be whiter than snow, right? So he's saying, you know, it's not me that can clean me, it's you. I was shapen in iniquity, and in sin did my mother conceive me. I was sinful since before I was born. You made me this way, God, right? But deliver me from this guiltiness and do good in thy measure. You know, it's not about I'm good and I'm just and I'm righteous now. It's for your own righteousness' sake, because I'm fucked up. So biblically, sin is inherent in the system. And this idea that sin is just the stuff that you do that drives you away from God, that's not very biblical. And if the headless really is Jehovah, and they're trying to tap into this very righteous God to do this exorcism that makes all demons subject unto you, then it's that righteousness that you're taking on the mantle of, because this is where it goes from you are awesome and invisible with an empty spirit, all the names, holy headless one, you, and then at the end it goes down to eyes, which is into this interpretation thing. And this is something that Harper pointed out in her talk that really was pretty interesting. But it's that switch from the external to the internal when you invoke this God. And you're claiming in this moment, when you say, I am the headless daemon, you're claiming to be this awesome and invisible God who hates that evil is done on the earth, who made men to love and to hate each other. Okay, you're claiming this supra-ethical position where you're beyond good and evil because you understand why you created it. And you don't have to worry about unjust deeds being done on the world. You can hate them and not have to worry about the fact that you were made to do them. It releases you from the guilt, and it prepares you to actually be able to command spirits. So assuming that righteousness is a necessity, which I'm not sure if it is or not, it's either imputed, it comes from God, or it's earned by yourself, which is not something you can do, or it's earned temporarily through a pact or a sacrifice where you perform all these cleansing rites that temporarily create a circle of protection around you that is considered holy and sacred and set apart. It's a saecula saeculorum, the holy of holies, the separated place. You know, you're creating a place that isn't corrupt so that you can experience God directly. But going back to Aaron, the gods do care whether or not you are doing things. The angels very much have opinions on righteousness and purity. They told John D. or Edward Kelly that he'd been fucking around with the Goetia when the Enochian angels were around, and they definitely didn't like that. Yeah, they do have opinions on what is good and what is evil, and it's different than ours for sure, but it's not completely non-existent. So yeah, I guess my admonition is that Aaron is mostly right, but you know, this idea that as long as it doesn't hurt anyone, it's okay. That's not what sin is. You know, because you can hurt people without meaning to any old time. You know, it's not sex. Sex is obviously not wrong. No shit, Aaron. The thing about sin is that you actually do need to worry about, I think, as a magician, is okay. Now this is probably the most important part of what I have to say today. When you're doing things that are not in complete harmony with what you really want to do, that's the moment that you are separated from God. When you are doing the things that you are here to do, which is to love and to hate, it can be anything along that spectrum, then you are being pious, you are being holy, you are being religious, and you are going to have the support of the universe at your beck and call, because the universe works that way. It's not necessarily this conscious love of you personally as an individual. It's just that when you are working in tune and in harmony with things, the rest of the things tend to support you. It might not seem like it in the time, but overall, in the long run, things tend to go better for people who are honest and who tell the truth. And when we lie, and I'm guilty of it as anybody else, the consequences inevitably come back on us. You know, you cannot hide things in the darkness and pretend like it didn't happen for some greater good, and then wonder why your life is shit when people find out that what you thought was good turned out to be something that was very painful, you know. And there really isn't any way to tell for sure in advance before you do something what impact you're going to have on the rest of the world or the people directly involved. You know, you never really understand the consequences of your action. Every choice is made in ignorance. That's why we think we have free will, and why we think we should be punished for what we do. So I don't think that we should be punished necessarily for our sins, but we should be aware of the fact that as we progress through life with a cognitive dissonance in our hearts and our minds, it's going to be reflected in our world around us. The amount of control we have over that, I'm not sure. I don't know how much of it is fate and stars and how much of it is free will or the illusion of free will. But I do know that we have influence over it. And in the moment, it appears as if we could choose to do the right thing and not do the wrong thing. And we always know what that is ultimately, I think. And sooner or later, it's beyond doubt whether or not you're actually screwing up, because you're going to see yourself hurting other people, and you're going to see yourself hurting yourself. And that's when you know that you're having a problem, whether you're ready to admit it or not. So anyway, happy Thursday. I know that was a thrill a minute. Yeah. Have a good one, you guys. And I would drink to your health and necessary wealth, but I'm not drinking these days. So have a good one.